Welcome to this very special event, the Secondary Education Module launch by MESPI and partners from Georgetown University and George Mason University. We are going to host a few really stellar individuals who have been working on this project for some time that I will introduce in just a minute. And we will talk about the background to this entire project and then move to a discussion of the actual module, as well as how to work it, how to search, how to find things within the module. And then we'll talk a little bit after that, a little bit more actually, about the history. Before much, I will begin introducing our guests. Now, because we do not want to read all the bios, we are actually going to include them in the feed. We're going to paste them in the feed, but I will also be adding or showing the information about the affiliation of our speakers and so on. First, please let me introduce the centerpiece who has done so much of the work here, which is Susan Douglas, who will be speaking in just a few minutes. She's at CCAS, Georgetown University. We also have another person who's not able to join us, Amy. I will talk a little bit more about her in a minute. And then, of course, the caretaker for much of this project from the Georgetown University side, Rochelle Davis, who recently was director of the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies and is also joining us to talk about the project and its background. And we have the fantastic Maggie Vagadoni, who is the editor of the MESPI website and the collaborator with Susan Douglas on putting this project online and trying to make it user-friendly. So before much ado, can I simply ask everyone here to introduce themselves and maybe say a few words. And actually, before we do that, let me say that this project was very much part of this larger effort that we have started many years ago under the rubric of MESPI, the Middle East Studies Pedagogy Initiative, which itself is under the umbrella of the Arab Studies Institute. But over time, we worked with partners such as Georgetown University, such as Professor Rochelle Davis, who actually worked with us to turn something that was good into something that's much bigger and much better and can reach a much broader audience. And MESPI is basically the mothership for the secondary education module. It's also the mothership for many other modules that we will not talk about today, but you can all check MESPI out at mespi.org at your convenience. So if I may ask everyone to introduce themselves, starting with Professor Davis.
Thank you, Bassam, and thank you, MESPI and Maddie and MK and everybody. Bassam introduced me. I'm a associate professor of cultural anthropology in the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies at Georgetown University in their School of Foreign Service. And as Bassam said, I was the director of the center for 3 years. Just as a way of background information, the center was established in 1975, 45 years ago, but it also has an MA, a master's program in Arab studies. And I think the reason we are part of this larger MESPI program today is our education outreach program, which has been in existence for over 30 years. We may be entering close to 40. We also work in partnership with the Al Walid Center for Muslim Christian Understanding on campus. And the real goal behind our partnership with them is to provide educational training for K-14 educators around the United States. And we also have a particular focus working with minority serving institutions and HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. And Susan Douglas, Dr. Susan Douglas, who you're going to hear from in a moment, she runs all of our education outreach programming. And really, together, I know that both she and I are really proud to be part of MESPI and all that you are launching today. So I will hand it over to Susan.
Thank you, Rochelle. We're also very beholden to you for having done the work to keep the Title VI grant from the U.S. Department of Education that funds the National Resource Center. And this is an enormous job. It has now continued, I think, is the third grant cycle, right, for that we're in now. And this really enables the work to happen and gives it a national profile. So for that reason, we're also very grateful. I do run the education outreach program there at Georgetown in this NRC. So I will be taking you through the website in a few minutes, and I'd like to introduce Maddie, turn it over to Maddie, who did the grunt work on getting this website up.
Thanks, Susan. Hi, everyone. My name is Maddie Vagadori. I am the website editor for the MESPI project, as well as the Arab Studies Journal. But the bulk of my work with the Arab Studies Institute has been on the MESPI project. I started with the Institute in August of 2018, while I was a student at Georgetown University studying Arabic and government. Since graduated and am working in California in Silicon Valley at a tech company, but like to keep my finger on the pulse of all things Arab studies, and loved the Institute and the MESPI project so much that I've stuck around, and they can't quite get rid of me yet. So I will turn it back over to Bassam, and I will be speaking briefly along with Susan on the website itself and the new module and how everyone can harness it. But Bassam, back to you.
Thank you, Maddie. Thanks to everyone for being a part of this. I have so much to say. There's a lot to say. Rochelle and I were talking about the different things we'd like to share, but we wanted to delve into the actual module first, and then we will say a bit more about the project and its background, and we'll have some time for some back and forth and questions if you may have questions. You could actually jot down the questions in the feed, but please hold off on that so that we can do it a bit later when we can actually access them after we are finished with the presentation. Susan, you have been, as I shared, the spearhead of this project and have been doing this for longer than any of us, and we are extremely honored for you to be working with us at Georgetown University and at MESPI, and we would love to yield the floor to you, and I could have you share your PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bassam. It's great to have this opportunity to work on this project. It's very necessary, and I'm always astounded at how much information gets packed into these projects that Bassam does. And I've been kind of on all of the discussions about the Middle East Studies Pedagogy Initiative back when I was actually still doing my doctorate at George Mason University in the Center for Global Islamic Studies. So we're really proud to launch this initiative, and there's the website for it. It's very simple, mespi.org, secondary-education-module. And what it is a collaboration between the Middle East Studies program at George Mason and other partners and the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies and Center for Muslim Christian Understanding at Georgetown University, which together share the education outreach program, which in one capacity or another I've been doing since 2007. Straight through now and centered in the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies. So the idea of this is to provide content and pedagogy in the form of teaching resources and scholarship on the Middle East and North Africa, on Islam and Muslim communities in Asia, Africa, and globally. The rationale here behind this is that teachers do not teach one region alone. They usually, in these survey courses, teach kind of globally, and it's also very important for them to be able to see the intersections between the various regions that they teach. Why the secondary education module? Because secondary education, that is middle and high school, from 6th grade up through 12th, and then survey courses that students take in K-14 in the post-secondary, give American students the most and sometimes the only exposure to content on world regions and their cultures. I can't emphasize this enough. Many times they don't take survey courses, or they take them so quickly that they really kind of don't have the time. We have rather in K-12 the opportunity to spend some time on this, to walk instead of a forced march through the material. we are able to engage with primary sources and really have students read literature and all kinds of things like that. So the quality of this instruction that students get in K-12 on regions of the world forms a lasting impression that they carry into citizenship, careers, and I will say especially now in this year, voting. Also, a major objective of this project and all the projects is to support raising the level of scholarship in teaching at the post and secondary level, which Vassam does so wonderfully, and at the secondary level for us. And so we're very proud to be a part of the MESPI project and to have an entire module dedicated to us. So this is the landing page. Again, you see the website link up there. And it has basically 4 major segments. This isn't the end, but this is how we're beginning with these 4 major segments. And I will go through those for you. This is a curated list of teaching resources highlighting quality, coverage of essential topics, and effective pedagogy. The first section, let me just pass here. The first section is a resource guide, which, as you can see, is divided into various categories. You can also get the entire resource guide here. You can download it, you can add to it. We will also be adding to it as we go. You can see the number of categories: general resources, world history, literature and multimedia, maps, all kinds of things, as well as list of the university resources, other national resource centers, and so on. Right after that, and this is a set of curriculum materials that are directly able to be downloaded. The very first link you see here leads to the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies website, where you can find a wealth of materials, also ready to download, also free. We're featuring one of those here, this unit on Islam and politics that Rochelle will address later. And there are quite a number of other things. Again, some of them are on the resource guide, and others are going to be emerging as we continue the work. This is kind of a centerpiece for researchers, for every kind of person working and trying to cover the region in K-14 classes. And that is a database of standards. Where the rubber meets the road in education is, of course, the state standards. That is what teachers are mandated to teach. That is what they sometimes even have to write on the board every day, what standard in their state they're doing. And what our wonderful collaborator, Amy Sanders, who has worked in this Choices program, she couldn't be here today because she's already teaching in a new school in Massachusetts. What she has done is to put together and survey all of the state standards on the Middle East and North Africa. Any content, whether ancient world or up to the very present, that is covered in those standards, as well as covering what is in the US history content standards. These are the ones posted in UCLA under public history, the world history content standards, and the very well-known geography for life standards. The reason for that is because these standards elaborate on what the states very often have only mentioned as rubrics in their documents. So this gives you a better background on what do they mean when they write a certain sense of a rubric of what era this happened to happen in, or just kind of the top layer of knowledge standards that are required. This will get you into a much deeper sense of what is up. So here is an example of the state standards database. Again, it is fully accessible and you're able to download it and look at it, starting A for Alabama, going all the way through every single state standard. And you can see what kind of work this was. Amy has done a wonderful job. Amy Sanders has done a wonderful job of organizing it and really going through every single thing, and even to the point of highlighting it in red. The next category is the fourth category of the secondary education module is critical readings for educators. Again, you can see here from the outline on the left, there are many categories for this, and they're featuring kind of readings that help educators to frame issues. And among the things that is on these critical readings for educators is a link to the main MESPI site, what resources are kind of curated out of that massive site that are things that would be of interest and of use to secondary education teachers in particular. So this will allow them to keep current on complex scholarly debates, books, and resources, to also find things that they can modify for use in their own classrooms. So we will be adding new resources as we go, including a teacher input portal. And so we'd like to invite you to visit the MESPI.org website and check out the Middle East Studies Pedagogy Initiative and the secondary education module within it. So I'll stop there and we'll go to discussion and then be able to take any questions that might arise.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Susan. I mean, I know because I was going through this with all of you as we were constructing it, that there's a lot to discuss. I will try as much as possible to keep things to the discussion of the secondary education module, although towards the end we'll say more about the ecosystem in which it lives. But for now, let me ask Professor Rochelle Davis to share with us a little bit about the background and how we got here in terms of this stalwart effort that I myself witnessed when I joined Georgetown University in the early 1990s, where I saw, I think it was Zaina Azzam at the point, or actually there was somebody before her, and then Zaina joined, actually work with high school teachers all over the country to try to provide an alternative to some of the problematic or low-hanging fruit that people were grabbing at that level of education, and I might say at all levels, to actually provide instruction on the Middle East. Rochelle, if you could share with us some of this background, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. I think it would be fascinating to do a kind of oral history, sort of community history of how universities and colleges have taken up this issue of providing better education to better educational materials for teachers in the United States, because it really has been a collective effort across the United States to try and get more regional and area studies into our schools. And much of that has been done through funding through the Title VI program, through the U.S. Department of Education, which is a great thing, and it's always under threat. And the Trump administration has tried to zero it out in every budget, but Congress has put it back in. So we continue to do this, although it is not without it being seen as a very political act to teach our students about the world. That said, if you pay taxes in the United States, you should thank yourself, and we regularly thank you, because some of your tax money comes into helping us provide better educational materials for students. So I want to do. I want to say a couple things about what MESPI is doing and what others around us do. And this is such a new initiative that the Arab Studies Institute has taken on that I think it's going to be really exciting to see how it builds out and where it goes. Susan, in her work in CCAS and ACMCU, have spent a lot of time doing workshops for teachers. And so for the last 10 or 15 years, we have had teachers come to Georgetown University, and then they get a series of lectures and talks and workshops together and things like that. We did a workshop almost 10 years ago on Yaro Mahmoud, who was an enslaved African, born in Africa and brought to the United States and enslaved, and his house was discovered the location of his house was discovered in the process of a renovation of a property in Georgetown. And so the District of Columbia's archaeologists went in and tried to excavate it. And we did a workshop around this man and his history about 10 years ago. And it was actually it was only 6 years ago, but it was an amazing thing because it brought over 200 teachers and students to Georgetown's campus from around the district to learn about this man. And so we've been doing a lot of work like that. But I think this new world that we're in, and the website like MESPI also allows us to say, there are other ways to engage in this. And another example is that in 2018, Maryland education officials added new curricular level requirements for teaching about Islam and politics at the 9th and 10th grade level. So we also know, because of the work that Amy and Susan have done on state standards, that over 30 states and the District of Columbia all have requirements to teach on the topics of Islam and politics. But we know that there are very few resources out there for teachers. Textbooks are oftentimes quite bad. Either they don't address the issue, or they address issues that really kind of they're downright Islamophobic or racist. And so one of the things we've really tried to do is fill in these gaps where there's a requirement put in place for teachers, and so to give them what is needed. So thus we created this curriculum unit on Islam and politics, which is here on the MESPI website, and that provides historical background, case studies, and exercises for students to do using the material that's in there, primary source material, visuals, et cetera. And it all really tries to address the issue of how Islam and politics sort of intersect, and historically and today. And the goal of this is to really help educators fulfill their state curriculum mandates. Sometimes what we do is just really to help students learn better, but oftentimes it's to kind of really fulfill the state curriculum mandates. And I just want to sort of say, finally, I'm not someone who's the target audience of MESPI because I teach undergraduates and graduates at a university, but I am super excited about this website for my own work in teaching, because it gives me resources that make me a better teacher on subjects that I'm less familiar with, or where I may be looking for a really good reading or background article or way to approach something. And it is there on this website. I mean, I think it's really quite a revolutionary website for all of us who teach. So many congratulations to all of the amazing and hard work that is represented here.
Thank you, Rochelle. As you know, and as everyone knows, we all have worked closely to produce so much of this. And I do have to say that CCAS was one of the institutions. First of all, it's dear to our hearts, those of us who are working at the Arab Studies Institute, at Jadaliyya, at MESPI, because many of us, I dare say most of the core group that actually sort of pushed things from the 90s into the 2000s is a MAS graduate, which is the Master of Arts in Arab Studies at the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies at Georgetown University. So I'm very proud to be part of this ilk, and I have to say also that Rochelle, in her position as director, has been instrumental in forging this collaboration that allowed us to actually take things to the next level with MESPI, so and beyond. So thank you, Rochelle. And before we go back to Susan, because we want to sort of dig a bit deeper, since we have a few minutes left, we do have some time left. So let me ask Maddie, if you could share with us a little bit about the website itself, the different pages or the navigation within the website, and some of the plans that are on the table.
Absolutely. So the secondary education module, as we've been alluding, is one module within the larger MESPI.org website. The site as a whole is really designed to be a resource for the entire kind of community of educators as well as students. So some of the modules that are included within the website are an essential readings module. We have what we call PRAR, or peer-reviewed article review. So a quarterly or seasonal installment of articles that are on specific themes or topics. We have the Newton Project, which is new texts out now. So a comprehensive review of new texts pertaining to Arab studies, or again, to particular themes within the larger region. So we've got about 5 or 6 other modules that are featured within the MESPI website, and in addition to the secondary education module, which is our latest addition. They are all very easily accessible within the main kind of menu bar of the website. So the minute you go to mespi.org, you're going to get basically a menu bar right at the top, in addition to featured content. And the modules themselves are featured right in the top bar, and you can easily navigate between them, in addition to seeing the content that we've selected from within each module on the main page. Each module has a different way or a different theme to it than the way the content is displayed. So kind of catering to the idea of a gallery or a library for the Newton module, where we have perhaps a bit more of a kind of linear display for the essential readings module, so people can get a kind of a snapshot of each text or each installation before they actually click through and read the text or read the installment itself. So that's a little bit about the website itself. I'll talk about future developments in a second, but as I wanted to quickly touch on what Susan said, there is plenty of work to be done on the secondary education module, and that work will continue for the coming months. This is the first release of it. We're really excited about what we've done so far and about the content that we're able to bring to people in a really accessible way, but we still really would value and welcome your feedback on the module. We are trying to really hone in on serving the community of educators, specifically in this case, secondary education educators. But we don't necessarily have a whole breadth of them to survey or gain feedback from. So any and all feedback is welcome as we continue to iterate on this website. On that note, we are currently undertaking a holistic review of the MESPI website as in general. We're thinking about, how do we make this more accessible? How do we rebuild the site to have better engagement features, to have better analytics, to have better sharing capabilities, to allow people to save content that's meaningful to them and then share that with their larger community or harness it in their classrooms. So on the whole, we're striving to make this website a lot more interactive. So please do stay tuned as we release the next iteration of the MESPI website. Please give us your feedback so we can make this a resource for you and make this a website that serves you in your needs, whatever they may be.
Thank you, Maddie. Maddie is credited with pulling all of what you see on mespi.org together, as well as the secondary education module, and we will be doing a lot more. And as shared, this will develop into a more interactive website where people can provide input and where we can build together as a community of believers in providing a much higher level of instruction at the secondary education level and beyond, actually. But this is actually where it all starts. This is why we're very interested in hearing more from Susan Douglas about the module, about some of the future plans, and how people may be able to use it, or educators primarily may be able to use it as of like this moment.
Thank you, Bassam and Rochelle and Maddie. I think that we can't emphasize enough how difficult it is to be a secondary teacher who, this includes, as I said, from grade 6, where students often get their first introduction to world geography or ancient world history, how difficult it is to say, oh yeah, I'm going to teach all about every place in the world. And I'm going to do it furthermore with textbooks that might be old or just really not effective in teaching about any region, that take very little notice of scholarly framing and things of that nature. So the work that we do in outreach is extremely important in being able to give teachers classroom ready materials that have been produced by educators who know what they're doing, who have experience in the classroom. And we know, of course, that every teacher is going to take those materials and modify them to suit their needs, or going to use parts and pieces of it. So most of the modules that you will find there, most of the curriculum materials that you will find there, all of them, in fact, are what we call modular. They can be used in a mix and match manner. If we have 5 case studies, they can do 2 or 3 or 1. We have teachers who tell us, oh, I'm going to teach about that region in 2 days or 1 day or something like that, according to their crash program that they have to do. Another aspect that is important, of course, is that these materials not be behind a paywall. And so what the significance of this site is that we're giving the broadest range of materials that are accessible to teachers for free. There was a time not too long ago when teachers would go to a conference and buy a binder and photocopy the binder, and they would pay for this almost always with their own money. In a few states, you would have a certain budget for these sorts of things. Now that's all gone. Things are on the website, and so we have collected those materials so that teachers can have access to them. In fact, there are a number of new materials that are newly digital that were in fact still in binder or purchasable form. So there's that. The other thing, again, I can't emphasize enough how important this keeping track of state standards is. Teachers have been through so many iterations of Common Core, C3 frameworks, giving the whole dust bag full of different names and jargon that are out there. And frankly, some of the younger teachers I talk to don't even have a memory that goes back 10 or 15 years of how we got here. And so seeing the state standards and putting them side by side with the national standards that were published in the Goals 2000, an enormous effort that was a collaboration between scholars and teachers in the field, um, informed by 20 years of research and collaboration among scholars wanting to know what should a student come out of with K-12 education. Um, Teachers then saying to the scholars, okay, we see what you're going at, we see the frameworks or the framing issues, and this, I will emphasize, was the first major cross-curricular reform movement since World War I. This happened in the mid-90s. However, it has gone down the American memory hole, unfortunately. So this database of standards lays out and shows quite clearly how the standards that exist today, the content standards that exist today across the United States, are in fact informed by the national standards movement as it was in the 1990s. But what we need to do is be able to have reference material that takes them back to what the larger documents were trying to say. And one of the things that they were trying to say was, how do we teach with greater meaning? How do we not just teach one thing after another in teaching about the world, but rather frame it and then show how things relate to one another? Real global education looks at the globe as a whole, not at one civilization, one society, or one strategic modern region after another, without linking them together. So another aspect of this standard study that's so important is that whether you are in Latin American studies, African studies, Middle East studies, the state of textbooks and standards is not what it should be, either because it's too truncated or because it takes off from the wrong tarmac, as we might say. And so this is also a tool for researchers, among whom the Middle East Outreach Council for almost 30 years now has been trying to track the progress of textbook writing and standards and things like that. So this is a tool for us to improve through the regular revision cycles of standards across the United States, to have input, to push them to be changed. But we can't do that until we know what is being taught. So this is just an amazing, amazing gift, and it is found nowhere else on the internet than right here on the secondary education module.
Thank you, Susan. We will move to see if people have any questions. If you can jot them down in the feed. If not, we could close soon. But let me just say that just a little bit of a background about what MESPI is and how it's connected to other projects that people have probably heard of, including the Knowledge Production Project, which is knowledgeproduction.com. This is basically where it lives. It started in 2008. Actually, it did start in 1995 at Georgetown University when I was a graduate student. except that we didn't have the capacity to finish it. It's basically the effort to gather, organize, and make available for analysis nearly all academic knowledge production on the Middle East since 1979 in the English language. And it manifests itself in 9 databases that you could find on the site. This is a generic set of databases that where we try to include everything. MESPI is the curated form of the knowledge production project, and one of the main cornerstones of MESPI is the secondary education module. And I do have to say that CCAS and Georgetown have also historically been supportive of the knowledge production project and its work, and now of MESPI and specifically the secondary education module, because CCAS is the hub that so many people within the secondary education system turn to for support, for guidance, for instruction, for advice, and so on and so forth. So this is basically how that cosmos looks in a nutshell. We'll say a little bit more at different times. We will be back with more detail. We also will be addressing the secondary education module in the first week of September during our first broadcast, which is titled A Month of Knowledge Production, live with ASI, where we will actually talk about the connections that we have been making between different units, such as MESPI, such as the secondary education module, with different or other platforms and projects. Let me see. It doesn't seem that we have too many questions or any. So this leaves us some time for last words. And just know that those who are watching, that we are recording this and we're going to make it available, and it's going to circulate widely again. If people have missed it, you could share this link, but you can also end up sharing the post that will come up in the next 36 hours, where this video will be, I'm assuming, will be on Georgetown's website as well as on MESPI, Jadaliya, and Status podcast. So it will be available for everyone, and it will include all the material and links that will provide more detail. So last words for all 4 of us. I am not sure if I introduced myself. My name is Bassam Haddad. I have actually a thing here. Okay, so now you can see I'm official. I'm at George Mason University. I direct the program for Middle East and Islamic Studies, and I am a Georgetown, a diehard Georgetown creature from '92 to 2002 and beyond in various ways. So that's that. So I'll ask Rochelle and Susan and Maddie if you'd like to say, if you have any last words to share, and then we will wrap it up. And I am actually glad that we were able to do all of this within 45 minutes or less. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Bassam and Maddie and Susan, for bringing this all together. And I guess my last words are, I think this is such a sort of innovative and new thing to be doing. And to the kind of interactive possibilities that we have today, that technology allows us to bridge across the world in many ways, but certainly in our case, from school to school, from educational institution to teachers, et cetera, via where we are now, sitting in places that are not our places of work. But I think it's really, I just think it's the possibilities that this opens up are super exciting. And I really hope that people will give us feedback and say, no, we need this and we want more of this. And I use this. And can you make more like this? Or we want these sorts of things. That will really be a way that we can address what people need out there. So please give us feedback and suggestions and requests. And thank you all. This is congratulations. It's super exciting.
Thank you. I'd like to just say Bassam and I are also from adjacent cohorts in the mass program back in the 90s. And so, yeah, I'm cut from that same cloth. I want to just leave you all by emphasizing not only is K-12 education the only and last and sometimes only opportunity that students have to study the world in a comprehensive manner at a pace that allows things to be absorbed, but that programs like the secondary education module, like the National Resource Centers across the country in various area studies, are the main link between teachers in K-14 and scholarship at the levels that you're doing. You may teach a small percentage, a tiny percentage even, of the students who come up to you as graduate students, but everybody gets something at the K-12 level. And those teachers cannot be expected to teach about the world effectively unless there are these strong links between teachers and educators in the classrooms. And that extends to another really important module on which many of the curriculum materials are based, and that is partnerships between teachers in the classroom and scholars working in the field, so that those things that are written are vetted from beginning of discussing approaches all the way to the proofreading and the release of these materials. And then again, releasing those releasing those on a platform that university departments can provide like this, but only with the massive energy exhibited by one Bassam Haddad as a fine example of that kind of work. So thank you very much for letting me be part of this.
Thank you. Maddie?
Yeah, I think, would echo a lot of what Rochelle and Susan said, but the content itself is innovative. It's incredible what's been sourced and what's been curated and how many people have contributed to the effort. I would like to see the website be as innovative in displaying that content in a way that's consumable and applicable for people. So I think that, yeah, just reiterating that feedback is where that kind of innovation happens, at least on my end of the project. So would welcome emails, comments on the website itself. You can message me on Facebook. I really don't mind how it comes. I just look forward to hearing how it's working for people and what they'd like to see changed.
Thank you. Thank you, Maddie. I will not say much except that the raison d'etre for doing all of this is how we are all often appalled at what our children and the students in this country are exposed to sometimes by way of instruction on the Middle East and Islam. In the 1990s, my nephew Michael would show me what they were studying in 1990s and 2000s in school and what they say about the region. And I was petrified. I mean, I was horrified at some of these approaches, which are presented in a goodwill manner, which means they're presented in such a way that there's no hostility. It's just like talking about, kind of what Aladdin, the movie, includes those words. Hey, it's barbaric, but hey, it's home. So, and I was stunned. And ever since then, not just with MESPI, but with other projects, we tried to provide an alternative. This does require some work, and it actually makes a huge difference. So we would love for the community of educators to partake in this effort, and we will make room for everyone to partake in this effort. If you are intent on moving things in this direction to provide a much more robust, grounded alternative to what is often being offered around the country in terms of instruction on the Middle East and Islam, especially at the secondary education level and introductory level in colleges and universities. Thank you all very much. Thanks to all those who joined. If you are able to share this link and have friends and perhaps educators that you are aware of, check it out specifically so they could go to the website and learn more about how they could enhance their instruction at the secondary education level, we would be really appreciative. Thanks to Rochelle Davis, our, in many ways, a huge caretaker of so many of these efforts, who has been consistent over the years as both a colleague, a friend, and an academic a public intellectual in so many ways, helping move these projects forward. Thanks, Susan Douglas, who actually is known by literally everyone to be an incredible force of nature, moving nonstop in the direction that I have been sharing to provide a much more sound education for especially at the secondary education level for our new generations. And again, very pleased to be working with both of you from CCAS, and very appreciative of what Georgetown and CCAS has done to this project and others. And Maddie, thank you for always making sure that anything we're doing is presented in the best light and enhanced and modified and edited and properly configured in order for people to be able to access it and actually use it. You have been such a consistent force, and we all really appreciate your work. And I would like to also identify Amy Sanders, who has actually been working on this project, but she couldn't join us. We are including all of the bios in the link below, which actually goes to the post where all the bios and more information is provided. So thank you, Amy, too, for your part. And with that, I'll say goodbye. Thank you all very much for joining. Shukran and salam.
Bye. Thank you.
Salam.